King Joffrey had built his whole existence on being greater than his father and his father before. Periodically, he would punish men in his ranks for betrayal just to keep everyone in line, fearing more betrayal. Your goal is greater than any one man or country, his father always said with a stern voice. Joffrey had matured, believing his role in life was to conquer all the four kingdoms and to bring order under one ruler, the rightful ruler. That was his legacy. After this becomes so, all will be grateful. The tales will never forget me, and in this way I will become immortal. All wicked acts forgotten and deemed necessary in the new world, he thought before bed each night. Joffrey was a great strategist, much more than his father, and yet there was a deep weakness boiling within, the intense fear of death. Each country he conquered, their seers and shamans would be pressed for the secrets of eternal life, and none were spared. As his kingdom grew larger and its king older, so did the fear in his heart. One day, his subordinates stumbled upon rumors of a legend in a distant continent. A man referred to as a guru who was said to safeguard the secrets of immortality. This guru, however, was more of a spiritual guide to his people, as the scholars described the legends to their king. While trying to make sense of them, his curiosity grew like wildfire. Guru was said to have sat still for a month without food or water and survived, they said. The king was absolutely enthralled. However, being so fearful, he felt that distance was too great a risk to travel. This faraway kingdom was large, and conquering it presented considerable risk after all. For the first time in his life, diplomacy was chosen over violence by Joffrey. Wishing to preserve the Guru's knowledge, at least until he gained his secrets, the king sent a group of his trusted riders to seek out the Guru. For many warm days and many cold nights they rode, using the stars to navigate. When the men finally arrived, they found the Guru sitting outside a large temple on a rock in midday, according to local directions. The sun was like a golden fiery ember in the sky. It was glowing with an orange hue. He sat motionless and greeted them politely despite their abrupt introduction, welcoming them to the ancient temple. Why come this far just to see a guru such as me? The guru asked, with his eyes still closed. In that moment, the captain brushed aside his question by affirming his status. I am Maxwell Farway, captain of Joffrey's army. Are you the great guru? The one said to hold the secret of eternal life? I am the chosen guru, he replied, with a soft tone. Then you must come at once. The guru smiled. Forgive me, great captain, but I cannot, he kindly replied. The guru explained that his people entrusted him to guard the ancient temple and all of its energies. Otherwise, a great tragedy may befall the kingdom. The men looked at each other, unsure of what to do. They explained that their own kingdom was feared. No one would dare defy King Joffrey. Once again, the Guru politely mentioned that he knew their mighty kingdom and its legends, and even still, he must stay. Angered, the men sternly announced that he didn't understand the situation. Their king would soon be leader of all kingdoms, including his, and had summoned him. So, he must come, or else. When Guru refused finally, the leader drew his blade. The other warriors kept their eyes on his company, a few men seemingly sleeping awake as they sat peacefully still. totally unnerved by the blade that now rested upon their guru's head. "Then we shall return with your head instead," said the leader sternly. The guru began to laugh playfully, which surprised him. Their enemies had always responded with fear, after all. "You may take my head if you wish," said the guru, "but if you do, my memory will begin anew, and you will never obtain my wisdom. Immortality is here, and only here, not by my choice, and so your king must come here to find it." The men stood awestruck at the fearless old man, his long white beard gently swaying in the wind. He didn't so much as blink, Captain Farway thought. Finally, after bickering among themselves for a while, they realized King Joffrey wanted him alive, and begrudgingly traveled back to their kingdom for many days and many nights. When they arrived, the king was furious, as they expected. The group's leader was sent for punishment, Captain Farway, and his second in command was questioned meanwhile. "The guru wasn't afraid of death, my lord, and even offered his head." Surprise befell the king upon his story, who wondered in this moment if he truly was immortal. The soldier apologized once again, falling to his knees for mercy. He explained that the guru mentioned the secret he seeks was indeed there, but could only be found there and nowhere else. The king, who was used to getting what he wanted, decided to depart for the strange land with great uncertainty and fascination swirling in his mind. He traveled with lavish food and wine within a thick carriage made of the strongest steel, with windows barred. After many days of travel, they had arrived at the temple. The guru told the king's representative upon greeting that the king must approach himself to receive the wisdom. Hesitant, the king exited his carriage and mounted a lavish steed with brilliant gold armor and pearls as the man helped him. As he strode closer, he gazed down on the guru with indifference, approached atop the mighty white steed. Guru, on the other hand, sat alone with nothing more than a loincloth as insects buzzed around his face. The king felt insulted. This was to be his first greeting? He thought to himself. "Are you truly the great guru?" the king asked with a dry tone. "Yes, great king," he replied with a respectful tone, "and I see you have brought great company, but you need only bring yourself for this." The king was not accustomed to being spoken to so directly. He responded commandingly, "I have traveled many days to learn of your secret, as you wanted, so now you will tell me everything," declared the monarch, as if it were his right. The guru apologized and explained it was not his choice that it be so, and then smiled, still with legs crossed atop his stone. "You must travel to a sacred place." "I have to travel again?" the king barked. "Apologies, great lord. I am but your humble guide in this matter, and it is the only way," said Guru. "You must go to the perilous jungles of tigers and follow the landmarks. Eventually, they will lead you to a small cave with an opening like a snake's mouth. It is there you will find a crystal clear pond that you must drink from its sacred water." The monarch warned that if he lied, he would be punished no matter the cost. His destiny was too important, he said with such certainty, revealing his character to the wise guru. After all, he will be the one chosen to unite all kingdoms, to finally bring order to the new world. The guru looked upon the king on top his steed, and their eyes met for the first time. The king could tell that in the guru's gaze was only understanding, as he spoke with a friendly smile and a soft tone. "Yes, my lord, you will indeed find what you seek. I am sure of it." The Guru knew no amount of talking would convince the monarch. I too have made this journey and was blessed by the goddess. Still, I cannot bless another. If what you say is true, my goddess will already be waiting. This is the way. His goddess only shows herself to those who seek. Not understanding fully, the king asked if his men would be immortal if they also drank from the water, trying to get a straight answer from the Guru. Guru respectfully gazed upon the grizzled soldiers for a moment and responded kindly, "But if that happens, my lord, they will lose the fear of death." Those words shot across the monarch's soul like a spear. Somehow, this man he met moments ago had peered into his soul. Irritation creeped in and ate away at the king's insecurity. He knew deep down that what he achieved in life was done by using the fear that already lived in the hearts of his subjects. And yet, in this old man lived only an unwavering fearlessness he could not contend with. For the first time now, he noticed other men like Sage sitting nearby, motionless, as if somewhere else, not the least concerned with 100 men standing steadfast, clad in steel behind him. Once you reach this cave, you must enter alone, and before doing so, you must strip your clothes and enter as I am now. Then you must sit for 3 days and 3 nights without speaking. You must do this by the sacred water. Only then can you take a drink no greater than your hands can hold, and my goddess will appear before you. The monarch seemed irritated. It was his destiny, after all. Such trials should be beneath him. The sage explained their deity is the mother of creation, and only appears when one enters her sacred shrine as they were during birth, without garments. And in this way you may be reborn anew. Only then will she show herself and bless you. This is the way, murmured the Guru, after a brief pause. The king began to grow tired of riddles. Instead of asking again, he simply departed. During the journey, the king relied on his men to brave the jungle, remaining in the safety of his impenetrable caravan. All landmarks came true, one after another. Dangerous creatures along the way were no match for 100 men. Finally, they found a cave with an entrance like a snake's mouth. The king explained he would go alone, speaking from within the carriage, to his most trusted guards who relayed the order, and his men were forbidden to follow for 3 days and 3 nights. Then all were instructed to turn around. The monarch stepped from his carriage and began to strip down while his men covered him. In this moment, he felt more vulnerable than ever before, but the promise of eternal life begged him on. The king used his kingdom's tabard, the crest of a golden lion, and tied it similar to how the Guru wore it, as best he could. He placed his garments just outside the foot of the cave to await his return, so he may greet his subjects as an eternal king should. Finally, he took a frazzled step inside. For hours the king pushed through thick mud and sharp rock, precariously holding his torch. The experience was both painful and exhilarating. He was far from the comfort of his palace, never experiencing the thrills of pain and risk. Finally, arriving bruised and battered, he saw a natural spring with slow moving water that led to a pond. As he approached, crystals at the bottom sent shimmering rays of light that danced on the ceiling. They were like pearls under the moonlight. His eyes were entranced. In an almost poetic gesture, the king surrendered to his knees, where no one would see him, feeling relieved. And so, for 3 days and 3 nights, he sat like the Guru had instructed, without a word spoken. Finally, on the last day, he witnessed the sun rays rising. They perched through a hairline crack in the ceiling, softly warming his face now. The king had gone to many places in his mind, many memories he thought lost, thirst and hunger roaring within, over and over. At first, he saw those he passed judgment on, and the cruelty that followed, his indifference, until eventually his mind focused on the moments of joy instead, brief as they were. He thought it strange that a king such as him had lived with discontent in his own palace and discomfort for so long. His entire life became unraveled, and the compulsive cycles that haunted his mind followed shortly after. In the last day, thoughts simply came and went, his mind free from fear and betrayal, and all the things his father had edged in his psyche. He was never more present minded. It's time, the king thought, placing his hands in the water and gathering it carefully between his hands. As he moved the sacred water to his mouth, something swam into view without disturbing the water, almost as if gliding on a different plane of existence. It was a beautiful swan, white with soft pink in colors. As it came into view, stopping in the middle of the pool where light shone brightest. "Wait!" said the swan, as the king held the water in his hands to drink, inches from his mouth. The monarch was beside himself, and for the first time felt lesser, even insignificant. He was in the presence of a deity. "You've come," said the swan, although the king's face remained frozen with awe. His cheeks flowed with tears of joy that he didn't think himself capable of. The swan understood his mind somehow, despite his silence. In that moment, her eyes narrowed slightly. "Many millions of years ago, I, too, drank from this pool, and now I cannot die." A foul emotion instantly cut through the king's stomach. His mind became knotted once more, and his eyes widened. His greatest desire had been replaced with doubt, and the words were like a sword that cut them down. Unable to take his eyes off the mystical creature, he tried to speak, but again no words followed. The swan knew what he had to say and spoke for him. "I am the deity you sought, and long ago, at one time, I was like you." The act of reading his mind was only overshadowed by the paradox now before him. The king felt as if pulled apart by horses, a common method of torture in his own country. "If you won't drink, then why have you come?" asked the swan. The king licked his lips, cleared his dry throat, and spoke softly. "To unite the four kingdoms, my goddess." He bowed his head slightly as the words left him. The grateful swan looked for a moment, then glanced down upon her own reflection in the water. Soon she spoke again. "I have seen generations of my people born and die. Finally, when I was no longer interested in anything, I came back here, and here I remain." The swan gazed at the man intently, waiting for a reply, but none ever came. For the first time in his life, the king felt truly empty. No thirst, nor hunger, nor fear, nor doubt, or even desire. If the earth swallowed him whole, he'd be at peace with it. He was utterly frozen in time. As seconds turned to hours, the light from the sun faded, and with it went the mystical creature. He sat there in disbelief, feeling like a child once more. He remembered gazing upon his father, who passed judgment atop his giant throne, all others, including him, forced to raise their heads in silence towards the godly man. At this time, he wondered why this was so, but back then, he thought, his inner child was unsoiled and full of possibility. The king in this moment no longer felt godly nor kingly, and outside, the men that had been telling many grisly war tales by the campfire suddenly, to their surprise, witnessed their monarch approaching from the dark. He was battered, but seemed at peace. The king didn't bother with the clothes he had left for himself. Bruised and battered from head to toe, he walked towards them, without shame nor consequence. For the first time, the king trusted his men completely. They quickly swarmed him, wanting to cover their king with fine silk and offering food and water, wishing to wash his wounds. Their king politely refused, explaining he was neither hungry nor thirsty and would simply like to remain as he was. "Thank you," he said softly. These words resounded in the minds of his men, having never heard them. The sound of his voice so thin a gentle breeze could carry it off. Years later, the now mighty kingdom of Skald opened its doors freely to all. Its monarch, an old wise man who spent his days sitting on an unguarded throne, and each night before bed he would tell his son the same tale, a story he learned from a wise sage during his travels, about a cave, a swan, and a foolish king. And each night it ended the same way, with the old man smiling and reminding his son that a man who conquers others is indeed strong, but the man who conquers himself is mighty.